Thank you. We've had a little IT challenges tonight, so we'll take a brief recess before that presentation so that we can get those squared away, but wanted to get things started. So we'll call this meeting to order, the joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency on this Tuesday, January 27th, 2015. Call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Not too bad. Can we do a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Harvey?
Here.
Councilmember Landman?
Here.
Councilmember DeLasso?
Here.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Skillman?
Here. And if you could all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'll move to approval of minutes of the January 13th regular meeting and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and adopted under this agenda.
Moved.
Mayor, say aye.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Birch?
Thank you, Mayor.
For the benefit of the audience, my name is George Barrich. I'm a former Cotati City Councilman here, and I want to thank the Mayor for giving the opportunity to speak out in the minutes, and I do appreciate if you do look out in the audience and see if anybody is ready in the future, because one of the things about the minutes over the years, as most people have seen, is that the meetings have been very much watered down over the years, and every once in a while I'll bring it to the attention of the city that unlike other cities who prepare and publish very good and thorough renditions of the minutes of the meetings, Cotati does not. And our Deputy City Clerk, Tammy Taylor, is more than qualified and talented enough to provide us the minutes in a proper fashion, but it really falls on the City Council, who is prohibiting her from doing that. Unlike the Planning Commission meetings and their minutes there are very thorough, they're very accurate, there's a lot of time and detail that goes into those minutes in order to preserve what is happening at these meetings, and I give the Planning Commission and the Planning Department a lot of credit for preparing those. Why this City Council continues to tolerate very, very skimpy minutes that don't give much of information about who spoke before the City Council, let alone what they are saying, what positions they are taking. Seems like half the time the city minutes are wrong on the positions that I've taken on issues. Now this issue came up before the council when I was on the council, and again it fell on deaf ears because I think there is this need to streamline the system and trust that everything that government does is done well and thorough, and we know that that's just not the case. So I would like to see the city reevaluate city minutes, City Council minutes, and see what we can do to make sure that they really represent the professional level of our city and to preserve what is happening at these meetings accurately and thoroughly. Thank you.
And thank you for that. So do I have an approval of the minutes from January 13th?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I have an approval in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And if you could show that is a 5-0 vote to approve the minutes. And then if we can move on to housekeeping items, I would ask the Deputy City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. For the benefit of everyone in attendance, please observe the following. Silence electronic devices, including cell phones. Audience members are advised that the chamber and hallways carry sound, so please keep conversations to a minimum or conduct them outside the building. Photographs or video recordings using tripods or other means that would be distracting are to be taken only from the designated media area along the west wall of the chamber. Members of the public wishing to address the council are asked to complete a separate speaker card for each item. Speaker cards are located on the table inside the entrance to the chamber. Place the completed speaker card in the designated tray located by the Deputy City Clerk. When their name is announced, speakers should come forward to the podium and direct their comments to the City Council.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I've spoken before on this issue so many times, for the benefit of the public, I want to remind the council and the public that there are no housekeeping items, there are no housekeeping rules, there are no housekeeping courtesies, because the fact is that these were developed a couple of years ago by somebody behind closed doors, and they were never brought forward to the City Council for review. They were never vetted to the public and asked for public input. They've never been reviewed, and they seem to kind of take on a life of their own each and every month with a little word change here and a word change there, and they just go right past the City Council. The City Council is approving these behind closed doors, and it's unacceptable. The fact is that also I think that the fact that you're requiring or asking people to fill out a speaker card has been held throughout California as to be illegal according to the Brown Act. You cannot ask for citizens to fill out a speaker card unless you qualify the statement with the fact that it is purely optional. The court has ruled on this. And the fact is that the citizens of the state of California have a right to be anonymous if they so choose to be. The threat of retaliation from our state is something that the Supreme Court and our legislatures have found to be a valid concern. And I would ask you, if you're going to ask for speaker cards, please do what the other cities like Petaluma and Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park do, which is to say it's purely optional. If you want to stay anonymous, you have that right to do so. But this City Council is completely stubborn on this issue. The other issue is the fact that I think you do need a housekeeping rule regarding our city attorney. Our city attorney is here to provide legal advice. Sometimes she has good advice, sometimes she doesn't, or you wouldn't be in court as much as you are. Okay, the fact is I filed a ethics complaint against Mr. DeLoso a few months back. And when I was on the council, we had a ethics commission, a subcommittee made up of 2 of the council members, and I think we did last year, as the year before. And if an ethics complaint comes forward, it is up to the subcommittee to review that ethics complaint, determine if there's any validity to it or not, and bring it forth to the City Council or dismiss it. And I think you need a housekeeping rule that says, look it, I just got a letter from the city stating that the city attorney, in her infinite wisdom, is now in the business of producing not legal advice, but political advice and ethical advice to the council. And that's not her job. She has a clear conflict of interest to passing judgment on the ethical conduct of the City Council. You sign her paycheck. And you know better. It is city policy that we have an ethics subcommittee who's supposed to review these ethics complaints and in their judgment and working in the trust of the citizens of this city, do the right thing and determine if it's valid or not. And I want this ethics complaint re-evaluated. Thank you.
And thank you for that. And we'll move on to announcements. The City of Cotati has special open hours on Monday evenings from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the Community Development Department at City Hall as part of its Cotati Open for Business program. This program provides personalized assistance and information to developers, current Cotati business owners, and those interested in starting a new business within the city. The Rohnert Park Cotati Regional Library hosts events for all ages, including art exhibits, book clubs, and children's programs. All events are free and open to the public. For more information, call the library at 584-9121 or visit sonomalibrary.org. The Cotati Historical Society Museum is open regularly the second Tuesday of each month from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and also by appointment. For more information, call 794-0304. Citizens interested in receiving City of Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up at nixle.com. That's NIXLE.com. And I had an additional announcement. There is a tamale benefit being held by the California Homemakers Association. It looks like they're preparing some tamales that you can order in advance for your Super Bowl Sunday parties. If you're interested in ordering them, you would call 591-9573. And they're available for pickup or delivery. Now we'll move on to approval of the final agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes.
Okay, thank you. Now, it is my pleasure to present a proclamation congratulating the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation on its 25th anniversary. Do we have anybody here from that foundation? Fantastic. Would you like to come forward, and I will read this proclamation for your organization. I only have a few whereases, so I won't make you stand there too long. Whereas the Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation has for 25 years been working to conserve, restore, and inspire public appreciation for this important natural resource. And whereas the Laguna de Santa Rosa has been recognized as a wetland of international importance under the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. And whereas the Laguna has its headwaters in the city of Cotati, flows throughout the length of the city, and is an integral part of its community. And whereas the City of Cotati has partnered with the Laguna Foundation in restoration projects on the Laguna. And whereas the City of Cotati both benefits from and appreciates the effort of Laguna Foundation has made to protect and restore the Laguna de Santa Rosa. And whereas February 2nd, 2015 is World Wetlands Day. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 27th day of January 2015 by the City Council of the City of Cotati that Laguna de Santa Rosa Foundation is hereby congratulated on its 25th anniversary and its continuing partnership with the city. Do we have any comments from the council members? Councilmember Lehman?
I'd be happy to. I think Mr. Bannister was ready to go there, but I'll make him stand just a little bit longer and just say I'm very happy to see this and congratulate you on a quarter of a century. And it's just amazing if you look past that quarter of a century, how little we appreciated, how little we did to take care of, and indeed almost everything we did was either to be totally unhelpful or to totally turn our backs and have nothing to do with Laguna. And thanks to the effort of you and a lot of other organizations and people, we've kind of begun the important process of turning that down and recognizing what an integral part of our community and our environment this is and how fortunate we are to have it through town. So thank you for all your efforts. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Landman.
Anybody? Oh, yes.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, and thanks for being here. In the 29 or whatever years I've lived in Cotati, that's been in my backyard, literally. And I think the first 2 weeks that we were there, we had a 100-year storm that we seem to get every few years. And I remember waking up that morning before the fences were even built in our backyard and watching 2 kids go by on a rowboat as they weren't even paddling, they were just ruddering. It was pretty amazing. And, for that whole time, I mean, that's been sort of this expanded backyard for us. And we've planted a bunch of natives out there and take care of that area for, like I said, 29, 30 years. So thank you guys for being around, because that's just a little section of the Laguna, and we know how big it really is. And it's incredibly diverse and full of wildlife. So, and it's beautiful to see the changes that Cotati Creek Critters had done for so many years and see the evolution of what's transpired back there. It's great. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Councilmember. Yes, congratulations. I agree with Councilmember DeLasso. It is very interesting to see how it has changed over the years, and it is really beautiful to go out there and walk, and we hope that you will help take care of it for another 25 years. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to reiterate that you guys do a tremendous job. You can really tell the love and the efforts of labor that have been put into that, and thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
And I'll add my thank you as well. And did you have any comments, or did you want to just...
I do. Thank you, Mayor Skillman and the rest of the council for those kind comments. As you've observed, we've been at this for 25 years, working on our mission to restore, conserve, and inspire public appreciation for the Laguna de Santa Rosa. And being at its headwaters, you guys have a unique spot in that effort. I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the work we're doing today stands on the shoulders of our founding men and women who 25 years, and actually more ago, recognized the need to protect this resource and restore it and inspire greater appreciation for it. And those founding people, we would not be here without the work that they did. So they were the real visionaries, and there was a lot of them. I could name them, but I won't take that time tonight. But we do want to thank them and acknowledge their support. I also, in being here tonight and getting ready for this meeting, enjoyed the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria exhibit in your hallway out there. And I was particularly struck by one of their interpretive panels that I'd like to read for you for the people that may be in the audience tonight that haven't read it. And it says, "Before European contact, California looked very different from the way it does today. Many different plant communities, including salt marsh, chaparral, redwood forests, grasslands, and mixed evergreen woodlands existed here. Native grasses were well adapted to the climate and provided food for animal life. Early visitors to California reported vast numbers of game such as deer, elk, antelope, and even grizzly bears. Sea otters were reported to blacken the bays with their glistening backs, and seal and whale sightings were common. Eagles, condors, and other birds by the thousands filled the skies. European land use changed the land. As trees and forests were chopped down, native grasslands overgrazed, and waterways altered and polluted, many of the native plants and animal species were lost." It goes on to say, "Today, through partnership and collaboration, as well as revitalization of traditional ecological knowledge, the tribe is active in native plant and habitat restoration for the benefit of all." We are partners with them in doing that kind of work, and I really share their historical account of what things were like here, and that's why the Laguna Foundation exists, to try and restore some of those habitat values, and we have been doing so for 25 years. Now, one of you, Councilmember Delasso mentioned Cotati Creek Critters. We have partnered with them as a local partner working on the headwaters of the Laguna, and I would like to bring up Jenny Blaker, one of the founding partners of Cotati Creek Critters, to elaborate more on the work that they have done here locally, and because we consider them such an important partner. Their work has gone up and down depending on the funding and grant sources and so on, but a lot of the work that's been done, well, actually almost all the work that's been done here has been done by that partner, Cotati Creek Critters. So thank you, and I would like to, if with the Council's approval, turn the floor over to Jenny.
Certainly, thank you. And here, let me give you a proclamation before you walk away.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I'd like to congratulate the Laguna Foundation for all their amazing achievements over the last 25 years. It's pretty special to be at the headwaters of a wetlands of international significance here in Cotati. And, of course, everything we do here in Cotati has an impact downstream into the heart of the Laguna, the Russian River, and even the Pacific Ocean. When Neil and I first came to Cotati in 1996, we had no idea what this big ditch behind our house was, and we were told it was near the beginning of the Laguna de Santa Rosa, but didn't really know what that meant. We gradually learned about it. By 1998, the pedestrian bridge near East Cotati had been built, near East Cotati Avenue, and a small group of us, with the support of the city, began to plant native trees and shrubs and clean up trash. We had heard of the Laguna Foundation by then and asked for support, but at that point they had one volunteer who'd set up a non-profit. They had no resources and couldn't help us in any way. Fast forward to 2006, when they had really grown, and we asked them to be our fiscal sponsor and applied for a grant from the California Department of Water Resources. And as you know, that enabled us to collaborate with larger agencies and Sonoma State University, and we started to hold regular stewardship days with thousands of volunteers to plant a mile of native trees and shrubs through Cotati, and then another third of a mile later on. At the end of 2012, we wrapped up and we handed over that 1 mile restoration site to the care of the water agency directly, and the Laguna Foundation to take care of the second site, a third of a mile further downstream near Gravenstein Way. just a couple of weeks ago, the Laguna Keepers, which is one of the many sort of branches of the Laguna Foundation, were out there with a group of over 20 volunteers, weeding, planting, mulching, staking and removing trash, taking care of that site. And it's looking pretty good, but they're coming back in a couple of weeks' time to finish off and do some more work out there. So I'd really like to thank the Laguna Foundation for all the support they gave Cotati Creek Critters over the years and all the work they're doing here right now to keep that going. So I'd say let's recognize their efforts and their help and continue to help them and support them in whatever way we can to take care of the Laguna de Santa Rosa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to citizens' business. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any items not listed on the agenda during this period. Comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for items on the consent calendar. Now, I don't have any comment cards, but yes, Mr. Berich.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, we don't have a chance at the end of our city council meetings to allow the public to weigh in on what has happened earlier in the evening, so sometimes citizens have to come back 2 weeks later and report on things that may have been needed to be commented on. At the last city council meeting, we discussed the employment contract for our city manager, and there was some disagreement about what that document looks like and what it means, and I was taken to task by Mr. Landman, who tried to correct me in the fact that since I was on the city council, I should know what an at-will contract is. The fact is, our city manager does not have an at-will contract if we have to give him or her 60 days prior notice before she packs her bags and leaves our city. What you have, in essence, is a renewable 60-day contract for a city manager, which is renewed each and every day he or she comes to work. That's the kind of contract we had with the city manager. It was not really an at-will contract. Now, you can play semantics about it all you want, Mr. Landman, but the fact is that's not an at-will contract if you have a 60-day warning period to give somebody to leave. And I would also take Mr. Deloso to task. We talked about the fact about this party ordinance that we've read so much about in the news that will be ratified tonight. We talked about how some of these homes were nuisances. And I brought up the fact that I live near the freeway. And the fact is, you can move or buy a house next to the freeway, and years later, when the freeway is widened, for months at a time, you can maintain an action in a court of law for a nuisance. And there was pile driving going on out there for days over the overpass, for days, pounding. You couldn't sleep. It was going on during the day for some of us who work nights and sleep part of the day. But the fact is, you can maintain your action for nuisance. And really, for you, Mr. Deloso, to think that you have a superior right to be free of these noises and these inconveniences because you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that trumps my right because I get up at noon. Because I work into the late in the evening. Your right is no greater than mine, sir. I should be able to maintain a nuisance just like you. Last council meeting, the subject of the fact that I was detained and I was arrested in these chambers last May because I called the planning commissioner a liar, and that's protected speech. And the mayor herself, who was supposed to be a licensed attorney, said it wasn't an arrest. And the fact is, it was an arrest.
The timer's gone off. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Mayor.
Does anybody else have any comments on general citizens' business? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Now we have direction on future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they wanted to add this month?
There is something I thought I would bring up that we had talked about previously, and we might have to re-agendize that. And I know way back when we had talked about converting the tennis courts into a skateboard park. And I don't know if that is still on the burner, or if we had given authorization on that or not.
Currently, there's no active plan to convert the courts behind the community center to a skateboard park.
So that was really part of our strategic planning that we had talked about previously.
Yeah, and historically, that's been a subject of discussion, but it hasn't been pushed forward recently.
Recently, I was at the Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund conference in Fort Bragg, and some issues regarding liability on skateboard parks came up, and it's something that we should, if we do decide to pursue that further, we would want to look at those liability issues and the exposure there. So I don't know if that needs to be put on a future agenda to think about that, or how we might address that.
I guess I would suggest if that comes up in strategic planning as a project the council wants to pursue, then that might be an appropriate time to talk about the other issues related to it.
Terrific. Okay. That was the only one I had on that.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. And Councilmember DeLosso.
Yes, thank you. But some months ago, we had also spoken about the issue of secondhand smoke in high-density buildings, and it's been on kind of a back burner for some time, and there's been a lot of issues going on with that. So I'd like to see if the council would be interested, and if staff would bring back a report sometime in the near future on that issue, because I think it's an important one that we should look at.
The issue of secondhand smoke is on the future agenda, so I expect, working with the mayor in the next couple months, we'll see that.
All right, thank you. Any other direction? Okay, thank you. So now we move on to our honorary mayor, who is coming back for a second visit tonight, is Catherine Bean from Technology High School. So if you could come forward, Catherine. And I know last time we had given you a homework project, so just wanted to see if you would talk with your fellow students and had any ideas to share with us tonight.
I have. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here again. And I had thought about the homework that you gave me, so I'm just going to jump right into it. The first question you asked me was, what in Cotati would I change? So I talked to my peers, and I did some thinking about it, and what affects me the most in Cotati as a student is the Cotati-Rohnert Park Unified School District. I have had an excellent education there. I've had great teachers and great schools. However, I know at Tech High right now we frequently run out of paper. I've sat on broken chairs and I've used books that had their covers ripped off or were missing pages, and we don't have the money to fix these things. I don't know if it's within the City Council's jurisdiction, but if I could change something in Cotati, I would give more money to our schools. That's important to me. You also asked me what I would add to Cotati and what could teens get involved in. So same thing, I talked to peers, I did some thinking about that as well, and I think a nice addition to our town would be a teen center. Cotati being such a small town, there's not a lot of things for teenagers to do, or it can be hard for teens to find things to do. So the teen center could serve as a place for teens to go and do homework or hang out with each other, take classes, or just have a safe place to be. I think it would be nice if it was located in or near downtown Cotati, and it could offer different programs like a community outreach program that could offer different volunteer projects for teens to get involved in. It could give different classes like art and music, and maybe have a tutoring center and various student services. I think it would be nice if it was open to students all over Sonoma County, ages 12 to 18, and it would be a great way to bring more people into Cotati, and another thing, making Cotati the hub of Sonoma County. And lastly, I thought about some things in the community that I'm just excited about, things that made me happy when I learned about them. The first is the Cotati train station. I live right down the street from it. I watched it get built, and it's beautiful. I think the train travel is going to be the next big thing in transportation again, and it makes me really proud to see that my hometown is taking a step in that direction. And I'm really looking forward to what the future holds for our little train station, and I have high hopes for it. And secondly is the Chimera redwood tree. I heard about that on the news. I was really shocked to hear Cotati on TV. And having an interest in biology and all things living, it made me really proud to be a citizen of Cotati to hear that when faced with the decision to destroy this tree for the railroad or to take the time and the effort and the money to transplant it, that the people of Cotati chose to save the life of a rare redwood. I thought that was really exceptional, and it made me proud to be a part of this community. That's everything I have prepared. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's been an honor to be the honorary mayor, and I'll answer any questions you have. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. And once again, amazing public speaker, so it's been a pleasure having you here both these nights. So do you have any comments from the council before I hand over your certificate for your honorary mayorship?
You're looking at me, so I think I do.
Okay, go ahead. Councilman Maloney.
Well, then I'll kick it off tonight. Hello, Catherine. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. Good comments. I share your concern about funding for the school district. Unfortunately, it's one of the things we don't have control over, because if we do, that would be something it would be nice to see. My understanding, not being an expert, there's a long-term standing problem that our school district suffers from in this county, being initially formed as a rural school district. Its allocation of funds is somewhat less than other cities, and unfortunately over the years, we were essentially, this school district serves the same type of load as these other more municipal school districts do, but it's almost impossible to change that allocations of funds because it is those groups themselves that decide on it. So what you're asking is the other schools to give their slice of the pie back. So that's a long-standing problem. Hopefully someday maybe that'll get some initiative behind it to get better. I have a feeling you'll be there to help if we do in the public, so that would be a good thing. And I just want to mention Teen Center. We've heard that before. Think that's a good idea. I remember those as a kid, and if we get to the position where we have somebody covering a few different jobs, including maybe something roughly akin to some Parks and Rec work, might be something to bring back then, because that would be something maybe a person could manage as part of a group of duties, and it might be a lot of value for our citizens. So thank you for bringing those forward. And just as far as the Chimera, I think we should all thank SMART, too. We pushed them real hard. Cotati did that, so thanks to Cotati. But SMART, who is much like everybody else in this community, like the school district we talked about, short of funds, too, managed to find the funds to do the right thing, which was good, because you don't always see that. So thank you for the comments tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Moore.
Catherine, thank you again for presenting that information. Again, you're a tremendous speaker. Have you ever had the opportunity to speak before the Cotati-Winnipock Unified School District Board?
I have not. I'd like to.
I think with your exuberance and eloquence and articulation, you do a very terrific job there. We might also consider asking them, if you're not familiar with it, what their funding structure is regarding the Tech High versus the regular other schools.
That would be interesting.
And are you familiar with why the Tech High campus is on Sonoma State versus on Rancho Cotati?
I've heard about it. I'm not totally sure.
Okay. I often wonder, and I'm not certain of this myself, if that arrangement somehow is as effective economically as it could be, and that might be something to consider if you have the opportunity to present it to the school board.
Okay.
If I have any say whatsoever, and I think I like to have at least 20% say, we will have a teen center back at the rec department once we get our house in order and determine how we're going to do the funding. That's one of my goals. I've been talking about that for a few years. I was around when we had a teen center, and it was very successful, but the economic collapse of 2008 made it difficult to keep that as a priority. Mm-hmm. So as we recover, I'm fairly certain we will get back to that stage. And again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, look to this side. Councilman Dawson.
All ready for comments again. Catherine, thank you. I'm not going to tell you you're a great speaker, because you've heard that so many times from us. Just focusing on the concept of the teen center, I know when my son was in high school at the ranch, he actually started a teen center over here, and I think it takes, that's when we had the recreation department, which was, you need the supervision, but it takes someone who's going to take the time to put an idea together and move it forward. And I'd encourage you, on the City of Cotati website, you can find all of our emails, and all of their emails as well. But as far as we're concerned, I would ask you to maybe flesh this out a little bit more. Like, how many friends do you know that would be interested in doing a concept like this? What might the use be? You brought up a few examples, which I thought was really good. And I think the part about trying to work into the concept sort of self-sufficiency. And certainly at this stage, the city may not be ready to, open the doors and move that forward. But to have a concept, and I think, you're bright and articulate, you can put something like this together, you and your friends, and send an email to all of us, at the same time. So we've got that, and we can share that with staff when we do our goal settings every year, because it was a great concept, and it was around for 2 or 3 years, and it kind of faded out as that group of kids got older, and nobody came behind them. So, I think the opportunity down the road may be there, and we should be poised and ready for it, and with the information you could give us, I think that would help us kind of structure what could go on there.
Okay, I'll be sure to do that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Harvey.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said, but the one thing that hasn't been said, you'll be happy to know that ultimately we will be getting more special trees here in Cotati. The timing isn't right now, but at some point we will get some more special trees. So keep your ears open. Probably be a couple years, I think, but we are working with the gentleman who told us about the tree to begin with. So more to come on that. And congratulations being honorary mayor. And please do come back. And I'm also supportive of the teen center if we can get it together.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I will present you with your honorary mayor certificate. And would you like to take a photo with all of us, if you have anybody here with a camera?
I would love to.
Okay, fantastic. We'll line up
camera.
So now we're moving on to consent calendar. We have items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So before we go into that, I will open up to public comment. I don't have any comment cards, but does anybody wish to comment on the consent calendar items? All right, seeing no one, I will close public comment on the consent calendar.
To approve items 2 through 7.
Second.
All right, we've with a couple unanimous motions to move in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please show that that was a 5-0 vote to approve the consent calendar items. All right, now moving on, we have public hearings, but there are none listed this meeting. So we'll move on to our regular agenda. Now, we need to take about a 5-minute break, I think, to set up the equipment. So if you could indulge us, we'll be calling this meeting back at about 7:45. Thank you.
trees, shrubs, flowers, ground cover. Is it finalized yet, or is there still room? That's a question. You don't have to answer right now. Here, I'll just throw them all out at you. How's that? And then you can tear them apart as you like. In-ground lights. Were the in-ground lights on the crosswalk going to be coupled with lighted signage? I thought you might have said that, but I wasn't clear. The street lamps. I know some of the street lamps, as you're driving, doesn't matter north or south, but on ORED in the older section of the downtown, the more developed section of downtown, it just seems like, and I'm not one of those who drives by staring at street lights, because that's really not a safe practice, typically, but some of those lights really just, maybe it's just weird, I don't know, maybe it's me, I don't know, but some of them seem to be coming down at a really tough angle right into the windshield of the vehicle. And maybe that's me. I don't know. So I don't know. I've had people talk about that. So I guess my question would be, in looking at the fixtures, what angles are they projecting down? And certainly we don't want them projecting up into the night sky if we can avoid that, of course. But that's just another question. Have you looked at the projection of the angle of the light? Okay, I'm still not convinced the way those bicycle lanes, when they're green like that, that scares me, but I'm going to avoid that and let the public weigh in on that one. And then also, how is Cotati illuminated in the monuments? Is it, are they solar powered, is it electric, is it battery operated? I'm curious about all of those. I'd like to see the lowest level possible of energy use that we could use. If they were solar powered, that would be the best, obviously. And I will stop there because I'm sure my colleagues have questions as well. But I will have more, I'm sure. Thanks.
Okay, are you okay listing them, or do you want to answer the questions as we go? What's your preference?
I can just answer them as we go along.
Okay.
For each council member. So, in terms of the in-ground lights, they do have post-mounted signs, so pole-mounted signs in this case. Flashing, yeah, very similar to East Cotati Avenue, where it's a whole it's a light guard system, right? They have both in-ground and the pole-mounted ones. And in terms of the street lights, they are, for roadway lights, they're mounted to project light towards the street, as opposed to a park-type light, which projects light in all directions. These lights are a similar style in that they are a single luminaire type light, like our downtown lights or our residential lights, the same style as that. But these light poles are going to be taller than our existing lights. And the primary reason for that is because we routinely, right now you all know that we have what's called the Cobra Head style light. It's the tall poles with the overhead arm. It's kind of a freeway kind of lighting system. But in our downtown, as you know, for holidays or 4th of July or anything, we put decorations or flags or things like that on the poles. And our existing downtown lights are too short. The poles are too short. And people could hang on the decorations or take them off or whatever. So the poles are taller so that you have to have a pretty good vertical leap to get the bottom of the decoration.
Yeah, I would, and all I would do is encourage you to drive through the downtown at night and just see if it's an issue. Sometimes it seems to be more of an annoyance than others, and there's something about the angle as it comes down, and maybe you're catching it at the right spot. I don't know, but I would just say check it out on your own and see what you think.
Okay. Yeah, and the last thing that I was going to answer before I hand it off to Vicki and Corey were that the Cotati sign, the way it was envisioned, the way it's designed, is that it would be electrically, so on an electric meter, illuminated, but it would be LED type lights on the interior. So low energy consumption lighting, but not necessarily solar. It wasn't in the current design. And hand it to Corey on the leaf litter question.
So we've selected a lot of different species, all perennials, mainly ornamental grasses that require very low maintenance. The deciduous tree will require some maintenance one every autumn to get rid of those leaves, but that's very minimal.
Okay, no, and thank you for that. And I neglected to say that, I would hope that all species there are as drought tolerant as they should be. I'd prefer to see all natives. That's not going to happen. I couldn't do it in my yard. But as drought tolerant, especially when you're talking about like the fountain grass and stuff, little to no maintenance on those things. I get it, so that's good.
Yeah, very low water use, low maintenance. And I also would like to say for some of our plaza light poles that a lower Kelvin light has been selected from the LED that will put out kind of a bluer light, and it won't actually shine really straight in your eyes as much as some of the warmer Kelvin light. It's a minimal comment, but just for the plaza lights.
Okay, thank you. So, Councilmember Lanning, you were leaning forward, or did you? Okay, sorry, Councilmember Harvey. Along the light question, I know that a lot of folks have also said that pedestrians walking in the older downtown, that the lights don't illuminate very well. So at night it's hard to walk down there because it seems rather dark. So if you could help me understand a little bit, since we're going to put nice sidewalks in and we're going to encourage people to walk more, it would be nice to feel safe by knowing that it's well lit. And then my second question is, where exactly are we locating the water fountains, and how many of them are there? And that's all I have for right now. Okay, thank you.
So on the illumination, the lighting design for the roadway has a higher foot candle design than our existing downtown. Way back, it seems like dog years ago, Vicki and I went out one night and with our light meter, and we went through downtown and measured the light levels and the variation in light levels, and we made sure that the roadway lighting, and I can confirm on the pedestrian line, I'll have to go back and confirm that, but definitely the roadway lighting was at a higher level of lighting that was more typical of a commercial area than what we currently have in our downtown. And then on the water fountain, so currently there's two proposed, one in either plaza area, so one at the Tubby's corner and then one at the former Shell Station corner.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, now on to my left. Councilman Newman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Three questions, two really easy ones, but I should ask. First of all, we've probably learned from experience remembering what happened to some of those very nice fixtures that we spec'd for approved in Lloyd Park as well as by the Vet Center, what happened with them. All our new fixtures we're picking are baseball bat proof, as far as we know.
Yeah, so those are bollard lights, and we have no bollard lights. They're all higher up, be harder to hit.
Okay. And just in general, the same thing as we're looking at our water fountain and everything else, I would keep that in mind because that was a really nice piece of design, good pieces of work. Unfortunately, they just didn't hold up, so thought about that. Another question, I'm sure it's already been dealt with. I couldn't quite tell from the 3D rendition, but the curved wood bench, do we have some sort of pegs or skateboard pegs or something there to prevent it from being used, unfortunately, in that fashion? Okay, I see nodding heads. Good. Just had to ask. I doubt that in this day and age anybody would miss it. It's important, but we'd certainly pay for that one if we didn't. Lastly, excuse me, having a hard time with my voice tonight. Getting back to the issue of parking. Preserving parking, that's a good thing. That's one thing that never seems to be enough for anybody. Just a few questions related to that. If we do go from 12 down to 10, is that safe enough in terms for the parking that needs to happen there and for the pedestrians? Is it wide enough for basically all the improvements we have planned? And then in the future, any new construction or anything like that, we still have, as part of the DSP, 12 feet. So if there's ever redevelopment to a large degree, new development, anything like that, wholesale changes to the buildings, that's still essentially monumentalized that is the requirement there?
Yeah, so the parking, the recommended change in the sidewalk width through that one segment of the roadway from 12 down to 10 it preserves a lot of the existing parking that's there now, and it doesn't, it basically takes the sidewalk to a point where it's still fully usable for everything we intend to use it for. And I think it's a good compromise to preserve a lot of the parking, but also preserve our intended use in the public right-of-way. And any development, so if those properties were to do a wholesale redevelopment, like any other property on the roadway, they'd be held to the standards in the downtown specific plan.
Okay.
That's the adopted standard. So they would be constructing the frontage per the downtown specific plan, which in this case would mean that that sidewalk would be extended out 2 feet to have a 12-foot sidewalk.
And I wanted to make sure there was some understanding of this, because obviously right now, we're in a position, fortunately, where we can afford as a city to put these sidewalks in. Perhaps in the future, that might be something that a property owner or developer, perhaps sharing costs, would bear the brunt of. So if they're comfortable with that, that seems like... Let me help this get a picture in my mind. So a 10-foot sidewalk. What's the rough width of our sidewalks in the downtown, in the southern part of our downtown, roughly?
Those, I believe, are around 14 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, and I'm picturing how those work out, particularly because large portions of those are for trees and things which we plant. But there's also a lot of seating, which you may not find in front of areas that aren't restaurants. So, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Vice Mayor Miller?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did have a couple of questions. In the design on the gateways where you're putting in wooden benches, the thought on that is that there's going to be a huge influx of people that are desiring to sit there at some point?
It just provides the opportunity for people.
Some kind of a rest stop if they so desired.
If so desired, I think, it's also with an eye towards the future as the properties behind them that redevelop.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I think initially when it first develops, it's going to be as much of a vehicle gateway as it is a pedestrian gateway. And the design elements were built with that in mind, so that as you pass by in a vehicle or in a bicycle, you can see the same gateway elements as you would if you were pedestrian.
So if down the road we determine that those will not be utilized like we thought they might be, or if they become more of a hazard, those could be removed with relative ease?
I don't think the level of use might play into that, but if...
Just in case.
If it was just, let's just say, if it became an attractive nuisance for some reason, they could be removed. We'd have to look at, making sure that it's removed in a way that the wall still looks nice after you take it off. I'm sure there's a way to do it. It's just it's a wooden bench, so that'd be relatively easy to remove and probably just patched.
Okay. I thought I heard you say, and maybe I misunderstood, but when you were talking about coming from the southwest corner, where the road from Old Redwood merges on the 116, I thought I heard you say that there was an opportunity to remove a stoplight there. So right now that stoplight is a no turn on red? And there's a light there? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, that's something that was one of the last sort of design elements that we were working through with it's not currently, because it's the last element we were looking at, it's not currently in the design, but it's something that we're looking at with the possibility of an addendum during the bid process. And it is currently a right-hand turn with a stop light there for just that one lane. And I'm sure any of you have noticed that there's lots of signs all over the place that say, this is, you gotta stop on red. And it's, and it's been a source of confusion for motorists in the past, for sure. And if it's not necessary, if pedestrians can still safely cross through like a light guard type system, then there may be an opportunity to.
So at some point down the road, we may look at eliminating that stoplight there and just have the pedestrian crossing.
Correct.
Okay, so as it's put forth now, that light would stay there, and we would incorporate that pedestrian crossing there, the lighted pedestrian crossing.
Correct.
Okay. That was it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think... Oh, sure. Councilmember Harvey has a follow-up?
I don't know that we got a complete answer on the parking versus pedestrian, where we're changing the sidewalk to 10 feet. Like, right now, there's not really sidewalk, it's all just sort of blacktop, for lack of a better term. How will that interaction between cars and pedestrians work right there? I just can't visualize. I visualize, a car backing into a person, a car thinking they, need to back out, and a person thinking they're on a sidewalk. So, help me.
Yeah, so currently there's, as you mentioned, it's just a asphalt parking lot, basically. So if you're a pedestrian, you're walking through an asphalt parking lot. The proposed sidewalk, as you know, would be 10 feet wide, and the existing top of curb out there is probably 4 to 5 inches above the surface of the asphalt. So when you build a sidewalk behind it, that means the back of the sidewalk is going to be at least 6 inches, right about 6 inches higher than the asphalt parking lot surface. So if you're a pedestrian, you're at least about 6 inches above parking lot level. If you're a car, you're going to hit basically a big curb stop if you try to back over the sidewalk. The only exception to that is that currently this parking lot has 3 curb cuts, 3 entrances into the parking area. The project would eliminate the middle one, so you'd basically have one at one end and one at the other, and it would be a drive-through, like a one-way drive-through parking lot. But it's very much like any one of the other driveway aprons for any one of the other businesses up and down, where you have to, where there's a driveway crossing that you have to cross as a pedestrian. But it's a well-defined area because it's a cut in the curb, and people know the cars are crossing there.
So that helps me knowing that there's definitely a rise, so people will know that they're actually hitting a sidewalk, and pedestrians will feel safer knowing that they're in a designated area. So thank you, that helps.
Can I follow up to that?
Sorry.
Basic question.
I'm sorry.
Certainly, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really grateful to my fellow councilman for bringing that up, because when you described this to me, I pictured parking perhaps much like we have in the downtown, where if you picture this box here as a storefront, then you have a sidewalk, and then out here is your parking. And I thought the difference, we were looking at making a narrower sidewalk so we'd have room to have slanted parking as opposed to parallel parking. Are we actually talking business parking lot and 10-foot sidewalk out here?
Right. The curb isn't changing, so we're not proposing any street parking.
That's quite different.
To clarify, will it be similar to the way it is at Loud and Clear, where you have the sidewalk outside and then you pull into the driveway and then there's parking?
Yeah, right. That's correct.
I don't know if that helped or...
So, and the difference being this way, we have roughly 17, 18 spaces there right now. If we went to parallel parking, we'd lose roughly somewhere from 45 to 55%, roughly half. And this way, we save everything but 1 or 2. But it just seems... Do you have a close-up of that, what that looks like in plan view? Because that sounds pretty non-standard and seems like quite a jarring difference from the rest of the street all the way up and down.
I apologize, I don't have a figure that I can display on
I
the
mean, I think
overhead, but
we can save parking spaces. I'm all for that. I think that's a great thing, and I'd be willing certainly to give up some sidewalk. And maybe I'm wrong, but my first reaction when you helped me actually see what this looks like, it sounds more of a short-term, creating a long-term problem to help solve a short-term issue. I'm not sure.
Well, on Old
That
Highway...
design sounds like it's going to be actually worth spending this much money and something that's going to serve this city for Lord knows how many decades to come.
On Old Road Highway, there's, it's, for that roadway, the area we're talking about, basically from 116, we're actually from Commerce and the northbound on-ramp to 101, all the way down to and through the park. It's typical in that segment of roadway to have the parking off the street in a parking lot. There's no proposed street parking in any part of this project.
So, excuse me. That'll work a little better so you can hear me. So if we were to go with what was originally put up here, which was the 12-foot, was there not supposed to be parallel parking on the side of the sidewalk, though, fronting those businesses, Arches Glass, Miller Driving School?
No, not on the street.
Not on the
Parallel
street.
parking would be interior,
Okay.
adjacent to the businesses. Yeah.
So it would be similar to zone music, as the mayor pointed out, something like that, or like where Mike's at the Crossroads is, that kind of thing, where there's the sidewalk and then some parking.
Interior parking lot,
Interior
yeah. I mean, like the Crossroads, or like, Walgreens, or like
Okay.
Zone Music, or Grapevine, any of those stations.
One last follow-up, if I can, just to satisfy this for me, then. I'm looking to you because you obviously have the background in traffic design, roadway design. You've been down this road more than a few times. If you're assuring me tonight that this is workable, safe, will make a standard that the citizens can use, but also be proud of and not look like perhaps a poor decision. This is something that works well, it can be made to work well and look well. Is that what I'm hearing from you? You believe that will function this way?
I do believe so. I don't think it's going to appear different to people.
And I have to ask only because, sadly, I can't picture it right now. I'd like to see a better picture, actually, because I'm more than happy to find a solution to a problem for any of our folks, but I want to make sure it's a good one, because we're doing something for right now for all of us who are here now, but it's got to be for everybody who's going to be here for decades to come. That's important. So if I'm hearing that gives me some more comfort. Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Obed, I was wondering if it's possible at all, and maybe it's on a short notice, but I would love to see an aesthetic on that, maybe some sort of a flip chart, just a little diagram, to see what that might look like.
Of the parking?
Right, of the parking there. Because right now, if you come in and there's, I don't know, 8 spaces there?
17.
17 stripe spaces, yeah.
And so if we're going to propose a sidewalk there, and we're going to eliminate some of those parking spaces, I'm curious what that's going to look like. And again, kind of the concern is pedestrians walking by there if people are going to be going through that driveway there.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's an unreasonable request, or if that's something that you might be able to do on a quick flip chart or something, an overhead.
I have some versions of a figure. If we want to take a short recess, I could go grab it and put it up, if we want to talk about it in detail.
Do you want to do that before or after public comment?
After.
After public comment?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so if you've included questions from the council, I'll open up to public comment. I have a couple speaker cards, and forgive me if I mispronounce any last names. Gary Helfrich. And also... Oh, gotcha. And also to let you know, we did receive a copy of a letter that you had written on behalf of the Bicycle Coalition, and it is with our packet.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, I'm not going to bore you by reiterating what's in my letter. I'd like to thank staff for working very closely with the Bike Coalition on this project. We're quite happy with the proposal to put green lanes in, which take a little bit of getting used to, but they're being used in more and more places, and the main thing they do is give guidance to the person riding the bike on where they're supposed to be. When everything is just striped white, and you're out there on a bike, I mean, if you go out and ride, you'll get it right away. It's a visual overload, and you'll be in the wrong place, and if you're in the wrong place, a lot of times that's a good way to get killed. So it's a big safety issue for cyclists just to know where they're supposed to be positioned in traffic, and this gives very, very good guidance. One point I wanted to bring up is I recently was made chairman of the Caltrans Bike Advisory Committee, and one thing that we're working on are pedestrian designs through those throats, those transition zones, like where 116 and Old Red are coming together, and you're doing the right-hand merge on and off. And the new guidance is to elevate the crosswalk, so the crosswalk stays up at curb level, so it makes a slight hump up like this. And there's been one installed experimentally in Windsor at Old Redwood, and it's performing fabulously well. It's made a huge difference in vehicle speeds, and just that little bit of having the pedestrian being a half a foot taller than they normally are, it's just interesting what it does. It sends a visual message. It slows the drivers down. We've got W-Trans did a long study with drone photos overhead and showed that there was without signs or anything else, it slowed people down through the intersection. Plus, it does kind of act as a speed table as well, but it's a pretty mild speed table. But that's one suggestion that I'd make. If it's not too late to incorporate something like that, that would be really good. I know that this intersection is complicated. It's not a perfect solution, but I really want to do a shout out to staff that this is about as good as it can get. That solution of running the bikes up onto the sidewalk and then off again isn't perfect, but once again, it's done in other areas. For instance, the Joe Rodota Trail at Wright Road, if you're familiar with that, it's one of those you can't get there from here. There's not enough right-of-way. There's a big utility pole that can't be moved. And I really think that this represents, from a cyclist standpoint, the best and the safest solution to an intersection which is kind of like playing Frogger when you go through there. So I really like this, and we really support the project.
Thank you for that. I've also got a speaker card from Neil Hancock.
Yes, good evening, Council. It looks great to have safety up as a priority. I mean, it is something that needs to be lifted. There's a long history, I think, of safety needed to be more visible. I mean, Caltrans, I think has a base level of it, and it may require at times going higher. I've actually had an accident happen right in front of me at George Street as I was walking across the road there. So I think having good sight lines and visible ways of informing the traffic is really an economic benefit from stopping accidents. This was a 3-car pileup that happened right in front of me at that location, and I've seen other places as well. So I think the motorist being able to see people as they move through some of these complex junctions is very, very important. So it's good to see that that's actually up there. And that we proceed to make sure that the whole junction is treated. So there probably is going to be more work in the future. We have Redwood Drive up to Old Redwood Highway. I mean, it's a new complex junction. Caltrans, it's just amazing that they haven't done the work on this up to this point, but I believe there's delays in their organization changing. So, it's good to see it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have another card from Rick Stewart. Or is it Rich? Did I misread that?
Mayor Skillman, members of the council, good evening. Our main concern with this prospective plan is the parking that you were just discussing. And with the 12-foot sidewalk, I understand now that's going to be cut back to 10 feet. Is that yes, possibly? Okay. Because parking, as you know, is very vital to a business. And the way this is right now, it's working out very well. going to the parallel parking and losing half of the spaces would be, detrimental to a business. For customers to get easy access is what you like for a business. That's what we have right now. So if the sidewalks can be pushed back further and not go the 12 feet, with the safety issue, with the curb and everything that we discussed before, we had a meeting with Damien and Vicki on Thursday and discussed this, and then I guess, Damien, you met with Harold this morning, I wasn't able to do that, and seemed to think that this would work, and we'd be able to keep the diagonal parking and not lose as many spaces. I don't know how many were laid out. I think possibility of using 3. Do we know how many spaces yet? Can I ask some questions?
It's actually better if we can answer them afterwards. Yeah, thank you.
How many spaces we're going to be losing if it stays with the diagonal parking as opposed to the parallel parking? Like I say, it's just access and ease of citizens and customers being able to access the business. And losing half of that, that would have a great effect, I feel, on not only my business, Arch, right there in the corner, Arch's Glass, Miller Driving School, and also, Harold's with his people parking, to visit the businesses in the back there. So if that can be looked at, something to where we can keep the diagonal parking and the majority of the spaces there, as opposed to losing half of them. So that's one of the issues, concerns we have with, the 12-foot wide sidewalk, if that can be cut back. We can also take the parking berm stops, whatever they're called, and those can be moved up closer to the building. We can gain probably another 3 feet, maybe even 4, that way, so to access it, to make it easier. We set up some cones at 6 feet and 8 feet, and the way it is right now, even with the berms back, we're able to get in and out of the stalls and go along. I guess I'm out of time, so.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to give you a little bit additional since you were asking about whether or not you could answer questions. So I wanted to give you a little bit of extra time since we were asking a question back and forth. So, sure. Yes, Mr. Birch.
Thank you. If approved tonight, I think this project will go down in history as the Cotati Downtown Traffic Constipation Plan. There's no free lunch here. You're not buying any adjoining property to widen the sidewalks. You're encroaching into the roadway right now. In this plan, you've lost a complete lane. The city engineer, now city manager, has said that we're not losing a lane because he doesn't consider the center turnout lane a lane. It's a lane. And you're going to lose it. If you look at the plans on view 3, you lose a complete lane. That's how you make up for this for all this beautification. Where did the tree-lined center median go that I objected to for so long? It was before. These are not the plans that were before the design review committee. These aren't the plans that were before the planning commission meeting. They showed a tree-lined center median. Now, mysteriously, they're gone. And if I have any credit to do with that, that's great, but I think you should discuss it. This needs to go back to both of those bodies and get further comment. This project also cannot go forward without dimensions and without measurements. This was a main concern of the design review and the planning commission. They want dimensions. We're getting fooled and hoodwinked here without exact dimensions. So it can't go further without dimensions. A 7-foot bike lane? A 7-foot wide bike lane? That's crazy. This is not sharing the roadway with bicyclists. This is hijacking car lanes for bicyclists. Let's call it what it is. There is no widening of Old Redwood Highway in this new plan. You are widening the sidewalks at the expense of traffic lanes. You're widening the sidewalks, not the traffic lanes. You're going to constipate traffic. You narrowed the lanes. We can assume you've narrowed the lanes because nobody in the public can find out how wide these lanes are because all these different commissions and bodies keep asking for dimensions. We're not getting them. The colorized crosswalks don't work. We see this down at Katati Market. Those colored crosswalks are 15 years old and they're beaten up. They're practically destroyed. You were warned by contractors and myself that they would not hold up the test of time and the amount of traffic, and they're all beaten up and they all need to be replaced. These crosswalk designs are not going to make it decades, Mr. Landman. Go down to Katati Market and see that corner, that intersection. They are not going to last. And you also said that if Measure U passed, you would not be able to keep the money. You'd have to send the grant money back to the federal government, and you have not done so. You lied. You lied about sending that money back. You're going to keep the grant money, and you lied. You need to send that money back. This project is not ready to go forward.
Well, thank you for that. And I have one more speaker card. It's from Jenny Baker.
Thank you. My concern was for bicycle safety. The green bike lanes look fantastic and very helpful for everyone. I guess if the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition has had a look at the plans and thinks they're good, that's great. My concern was where it looks as though bicycles would have to be on the left-hand side of the cars and then cross to the right in front of the traffic. It didn't seem very safe. And also the going from bike lane to sidewalk and back. But mostly the crossing across traffic lanes and being on the left of the cars. And then I just wanted to mention, I don't know if it's relevant to the plan or not, but St. Joseph's Way is being used as a fast cut-through now by people trying to avoid Old Redwood Highway. I was walking down St. Joseph's Way the other day and 5 or 6 cars on a motorbike came speeding down there, I guess just trying to avoid Old Redwood Highway. And anyway, that seemed like an issue. But bicycle safety, I'm wondering if you could address those questions a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I don't have any more speaker cards. Is there anybody else here who'd like to make public comment on this? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment on that. Thank you. And then did you want to take a few moments so that we could come back and answer questions as well as have the diagram?
Sure, either way. I could answer some questions now, or we could do it after the break.
Okay. Why don't you address the questions or answer the questions, and then people can decide if they want to stay afterwards to see the parking.
Okay. So one of the questions was about the bike lane transitions and the bike lanes being on the left-hand side through to the turns. It's standard that the standard practice is the bike lane's on the left-hand side, so you're not on the inside of a turn as a bicyclist, because motorists tend to cut corners, and you don't want a bicyclist there where someone's going to come in against the curb and you're there on a bicycle, because obviously you would lose that interaction, and it's, not a good situation. So that's why they're on the left-hand side. And also, I'll just generally state that all the dimensions are in the Planning Commission packet, and there's no lanes being lost, and the center turn lane is still there. It gets wider. Nothing encroaches on the roadway. The curb lines are being pulled back, and the roadway is becoming wider. I think that was probably fairly straightforward, but I just thought I'd clarify it in case anyone was confused.
Okay, and then we'll address the issues about the parking when we come back with the diagram. Okay, thank you. So we'll take 5-10 minutes. Okay, thanks. We'll take about 5 things set up, so we'll turn down the lights a little bit and address the parking issue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So this is a close-up of the corner that we're all talking about. And just to orient everybody, this is the plaza coming in here. There's Old Redwood Highway. La Plaza crosses. These are the businesses: Arches Glass, Miller Driving School, Rancho Realty in this building here. And this is the driveway from the adjacent home that's there on Old Railroad Highway. And the next building down that you don't see, it's off the aerial, is Papa Murphy's Pizza. So the black lines shown here are what was proposed with the standard 12-foot sidewalk. So you have to excuse this isn't a final work product because it's still it was under discussion. So this is the 12-foot sidewalk. This is the back. So this is the back of the proposed sidewalk. Right down here, you can see the city right-of-way line. That's where the public property ends and private property begins. That's the Rancho Realty sign, the monument sign that I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And then these are tree grates and tree wells tree grates. The hatched area behind them is colorized concrete. And then right here is a driveway apron, and this is another driveway apron. And like I mentioned, currently there's 3 separate entrances into this parking area, and the proposal was to eliminate one of them, create and have one here, one there, and there's one here as well. I mean, this is fairly typical up and down the road as people access their parking and businesses. And so vehicles would cross the sidewalk at this point and that point. The rest of this would be protected. It's a raised sidewalk, so it'll be protected from vehicle traffic. And then these are stalls. You can see them in red. And in talking with the property and business owners there was opportunities to move up the lines, basically move up the lane lines, so moving farther into private property, which allowed for a 10-foot drive aisle through here, which is what I think at a minimum you need to be able for it to function properly. And it's hard to see it this far away from the figure, but basically these are maintaining the same orientation as the existing ones. It's roughly like a 60-degree parking stall. You can faintly see there's some numbers here, and then there's an X on this one, which means that this one would no longer be there because there wouldn't be enough room to back up. And then some additional stalls here, and there's 3 different options that were discussed here. You can see in the red lines underneath part of the original proposal, which was parallel parking in here. There's also a diagonal parking layout in blue, which is closer to like a 45-degree parking layout. And then finally, in that 45-degree parking layout uses the existing line, where the parking stall's painted today. And then there's another option here which maintains roughly a 60-degree angle parking, which is like what it is today, but moves it in. The face of the building is down here. It moves it about a foot closer to the building and maintains the existing 60-degree parking. And there's 2 spaces over here that would go away. I'm sorry, here and here. This parking stall is currently painted on top of what would normally be the sidewalk and the curb ramp. And then this one is also too close to be functional. This right here is a planter. And this project, you can't see on this particular figure because it wasn't what we were looking at, but the new concrete sidewalk would wrap around and continue along the edge of the building line here and meet up with the existing sidewalk just off the image here on La Plaza. So right now this is asphalt. It's basically an asphalt sidewalk, but then there's a big planter right in the middle of it, probably because there's parking right behind it. But that would all, that would go away. So the planter would go away, the parking stall would go away, and you have a continuous sidewalk around the corner that would connect up. So now getting to the proposal at hand, like I said, this is shown as a 12-foot sidewalk, and what I was recommending was that we take the 12-foot and make it 10 feet, which provides you can't see the dimensions here, but it makes more of these diagonal parking spaces work, which if you go with all these parking plus a 45-degree orientation here, it gets you a minimum of 12 spaces after the project. If if this curb stops were basically moved up a foot, then you'd end up with 14 spaces. There's currently, as we talked about, 17 spaces, including this one over here on this edge. But if you there's 17 currently striped spaces. If you eliminating this one, because it's on the sidewalk, it's 16, so you have a differential of, or a loss of 2 or 3, depending on how you count them. So that's it in a nutshell. So the only thing that we're talking about changing is the back of the sidewalk. The existing curb line is staying where it is, up and down the road here, between William and George and the plaza.
Okay, thank you. And then I just had a quick question. This crosswalk there, that's one of the ones that was talked about being improved with the lights, is that correct?
Correct. That's the crossing of the road that would have the in-ground lighting, which would make this a more accessible pathway for pedestrians, and potentially open up more parking on the other side of the roadway.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any questions from council on this specific issue of parking at this corner? Or does that help to have a visual? Yes, Councilman Newman.
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot to Vice Mayor Moore for suggesting this, and to our acting city manager for actually getting this put together, and that was very, very helpful. So, bottom line, the necessity to go from 12 feet to 10 feet is to make sure there's room for these cars, excuse me, to be able to back out. And with this design, we only really lose 3 spaces to essentially maintain just about everything. Is it necessary to have the full 10 feet? I take it 11, something like that, just doesn't work.
Right. It's 10 feet is the edge that will preserve. I think it's the balancing point where it preserves the maximum number of parking in here while also preserving the intended use with the project for pedestrians.
Yeah, I know we have a few places where parking is functional, but very tight. I'm thinking like over at Pete's. And the last thing I'd want to do is put in something where it's a little tighter. Insurance companies will be happy, a few other people, so.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And could you just again shine with your laser pointer and show us where cars will be entering? Say they're heading from the north and coming this way, so they'd be entering there, and where would they be exiting when they're leaving? Right there. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to, right, it's pretty
I just
straightforward.
wanted to confirm that's what I thought it was, what it looked like, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council?
No, I just want to say thank you, Damien. It gives me a much better visual of what we were considering there. The aesthetics going from 12 feet to 10 feet visually is not a significant concern. So if you're walking down or you're looking down that roadway, it's not significant enough change in the sight line or the view.
I think, if you're on the roadway, if you're on the roadway either in a car or on a bicycle, you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. A pedestrian may notice if they're looking at the back of the sidewalk, but the main thing is how everything's handled on the first basically 5 feet, because these tree grates are 5 feet deep, and they're also so basically with the back of the tree grate there is 5.5 feet when you consider the little piece of sidewalk behind the curb before the tree grate starts. If you went under 10 feet for the sidewalk, it would the path of travel would continue to shrink to the point where you couldn't plant trees anymore, and that would be very noticeable if the trees weren't there. So as you're going down the roadway, you're going to see all the same vertical features. Nothing will change. You'd have to get out of your car and look to see where the sidewalk kind of bends in a little bit to really notice it.
Thank you. It appears that as that corner, if this were to go through like that corner as it matures, aesthetically with the trees and everything would just look even better and more contiguous with the rest of the downtown Pacific.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely both provides a definite aesthetic upgrade through this whole section, so you're going to have a straight line of trees coming through here as they mature, as well as, from a pedestrian vantage point, when you have something large between you and the street, the cars, it makes you feel more comfortable. So I'm told from my planner friends.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're walking on the side of the freeway.
Right, I mean, you don't feel like a car could hop the curb and then, run you over.
Right.
There's some significant barriers in the way.
At least after the trees mature.
Right, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and do we have questions from Councilmember?
Yeah, I think worrying about going from 12 feet to 10 feet or 10 feet to 12 feet, if you think about the width of the sidewalk at La Plaza Park, it's probably 44 to 48-inch wide sidewalk. Now, there's a lot of turf and mature trees there, but this is honestly, nobody's going to notice a difference. Nobody will notice this difference. Of course, there won't be a difference. Who are we kidding? It's going to be potentially, depending on how we vote here, a 10-foot wide sidewalk with streetscape. So I think we've gotten into the weeds here quite a bit, which is fine, but I don't think it's going to be anything noticeable, especially when you're looking further south and you have about half of a sidewalk width where you're standing right out there. I just thought I'd throw that out as a perspective. And I went around measuring sidewalks, for God's sakes, on Sunday. I took my tape measure and I went around town and I said, I'm curious. I want to see what some sidewalk widths are. And they're all over the place. Residential is radically different. If you're going to have streetscape like this, then it's even wider. But, I think, and I'm glad it's a 10-foot wide sidewalk that's being suggested, because I had a lot of notes in here saying, convince me we need a 12-foot wide sidewalk, because I wasn't convinced. I just thought that was excess. Just for a different perspective, I thought I'd throw that out there. But can I go to just a couple of other questions?
If I may be able to comment on your perspective on there?
Counterpoint, go for it.
When you're going from a commercial area and then you're looking to a park and you're comparing sidewalks, those are two different worlds. You don't have a business in there against that 4-foot sidewalk that's meandering through the park. So I don't know I think that analogy works in this particular situation.
Yeah, but you were saying, is it going to be noticeably, is there going to be some kind of contiguous look? And it won't be. Regardless of whether it was 10 or 12 feet, it's going down to half the... But
it will still maintain a contiguous view from that corner looking north. And so when you look down, if you're coming into that, you won't have a noticeable difference according to the experts that have put this together. So I think that covers that. But then, for all intents and purposes, if you have 5-foot cutouts for trees all in there, and then you have the remaining, 5.5, as you said, then you have the remaining 4.5-foot sidewalk. Now your true walking path, as most people would take, is not only 4.5 feet, not 10 feet. Because it's unusual that you're going to be meandering through the trees. Typically, you would stay in that walkway.
All depends on your perspective of life, I guess.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any other comments?
Yes, I do. Have the species, going back to species of trees specifically, has there been consideration regarding roots and sidewalks? Overwatering, roots will stay shallow, have a chance to break up the sidewalk sooner than later. Less watering, the tree's going to suffer and die. Any?
Yeah, the landscape design is a deep... I'll start with, there's something called structural soil, which is a type of basically planting soil that can have improvements put over it, so that it's not, a typical organic soil that can decompose and settle over time, and then, of course, the sidewalk would follow it on its way down.
Right.
So to start with, there's a large excavation for each tree well that's full of structural soil that the trees can root in, and that will maintain their structure, and they can be compacted like a road base. And then the watering system themselves are, what's designed are a deep root watering system where it puts the water down towards the bottom, as well as root barriers. So those are all sort of the engineering solutions. I will say that also the species selection was also chosen to look at a type of species that would be less problematic in terms of sort of root intrusion that maybe we've seen in some other places in town.
Good. No, thank you for that. And I figured that that was the case when I looked up the species that seemed to be appropriate. I just, I think of the horror stories when you look at like downtown Petaluma on D Street, and you have sidewalk, that's lifted up 2 feet in some cases, and it's just, those were the old days. I understand that, and it's a completely different world now. So, I had a question on existing right-of-way, and I have completely lost what that question was all about. So that's all I have for now.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm okay for right now.
Okay. And the only comment that I wanted to throw out there was that I really appreciate the idea of being able to shift from a 12-foot to a 10-foot based upon input that you got from the local businesses, that helps with the parking situation. So I appreciate that we're able to be flexible so that we can accommodate existing businesses and be in good working partnerships. So thank you for proposing that. So at this point, yes, Councilman Lehman.
Just wanted to make one comment. I wanted to get in the point-counterpoint and make it a point-counterpoint or something like that. Wasn't quite fast enough, but I just want to disagree really gently with one thing, that it must really seem like it, especially if you have to sit in the audience and put up with all this talk, and it goes on forever and ever, but we're really trying to make sure we cover all the bases and do the right thing here. I mean, for me personally, I can say, when I look at really the decision, whether we worry about 10 feet, 12 feet, whoops, it's shorter at the park, I think the goal, what everybody's trying to do, is get the best design possible out of this and not diminish it in any way. I mean, the real question, what I would want to avoid totally is institutionalizing a bad design just for a short-term gain, even if there's a few parking spaces that are valuable. I have to say I'm speaking to support this now. Having had a chance to look at this, I think this is a reasonable combination. I don't think it diminishes unnecessarily what we have, and it provides value to other people, and that's a good thing. The clear understanding this is essentially an accommodation that exists for this current building configuration. While it's there, while it's being used this way, it's there. In the future, if time when none of us will probably be too worried about it, if something new comes in, that may change, and it may well be a wider sidewalk, and that's a good thing. So, but I wanted to say I appreciate the questions and the time spent on this, and I think I have a lot better sense going home that this is a good vote now, rather than when I first heard this was a little different when I pictured, and I think that's time that's always well spent. So I appreciate the council's patience and the audience patience with us working our way through it. Thank you.
Okay, so after all the questions and comments and answers and public comments, do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll move to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to award construction phase and inspection agreements up to the total budgeted amount.
And I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, may the record reflect that's a 5-0 vote in support of. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item 9, which is a recommendation to Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Association for various appointments. And I will turn to our Deputy City Clerk who's presenting this. And my understanding is these recommendations will be conveyed to me to do the vote on the February 12th meeting.
Exactly. On February 12th, the Mayors and Council Members Association of Sonoma County will be meeting, and there were 2 meetings. One will be meeting, the Board of Directors will meet, comprised of the mayors, and their designated voting representative, and then there will be a general membership meeting. In addition, the City Selection Committee will meet, which is also comprises the mayors, although it's a separate body. So the Board of Directors and the City Selection Committee will be recommending to the Board of, in some cases they'll be actually making the appointment, and in other cases they'll be recommending to the Board of Supervisors their recommendation from the members of the association, the appointment. So the vacancies and the letters of interest are listed in your packet.
Okay, thank you. And looking through this, it looks like that the majority of them are people seeking reappointment, and there are 3 at least that I counted where we have more people who are interested than we have positions. So if you want, I can just run through quickly the ones that we only have 1 person, and then we can address any questions or comments to the ones that we're having multiple applicants. So the city selection chair, that goes to the mayor of Healdsburg automatically. The city selection vice chair goes to the vice chair, city of Petaluma, automatically. So Airport Land Use Commission, there are 2 appointments spots available, and we have 3 people who are expressing interest. So let's talk about those. We have letters of interest from Sam Salmon of Windsor, Gabe Kearney of Petaluma, and Dominic Fapoli from Windsor. So I will turn to the council, see if we have comments or questions.
I would say, Sam's been on there for some time, and I have no problem with moving that forward. And I know that Jake Hours from Santa Rosa was the other rep, so he's rotated off.
He did not run for election.
So he's off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, between Gabe and Dominic, I don't know. Gabe Kearney seems like a good man, as, we've spoken to him in the past. And I've read all those letters of interest. So that would be my recommendation, be Sam and Gabe, but I'm certainly open for discussion.
I would concur with that, and I also noted that Sam and Dominic are both from Windsor, and I don't know that we really need to have 2 folks from Windsor representative on that board. So I think doing Gabe would also give us kind of the other end of the county, if you will, perspective. So.
Okay, great. And I'll turn to my left. Councilman Raymond.
I can go along with that recommendation. Certainly with Mr. Seaman, no question about that. This is a difficult one. Mr. Kearney has more time in office, more experience. Mr. Fapoli, of course, being up there, I agree with your perspective. It's normally 2 cities that wouldn't, and I started to nod my head, and then I thought about it, but wait a minute, they're both actually impacted up there. So the argument's a toss-up, but I think knowing Mr. Kearney, and I have not heard from anybody, that's the other thing I look for, who's taking the time to call and ask.
Right.
Mr. Kearney at least mentioned to me at a dinner the other week. I haven't heard from anybody else, so I would support those 2 myself as well.
My concern on that was, I thought it might be more appropriate to have people that actually were near the airport, and Sam and Mr. Fapoli were up there. I'm not understanding Mr. Kearney's desire to be on that particular commission and what the benefits to that commission would be, or to Mr. Kearney.
They do have a private airport in Novato, right next door to him.
They have one in Petaluma.
Yeah.
Petaluma has the airport.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
And so the Petaluma Airport would come under the Airport Land Use Commission? Or is this strictly in reference to the Sonoma County Airport?
Well, I believe it's fair to say there's more action happening up there north right now, but I would imagine they would all fall under that rubric, so.
I'm not overly committed to Mr. Fapoli or Mr. Kearney, so either way that the council would like to go that way, but I just thought it would be more applicable to have people closer to the Sonoma County Airport.
I'll just add, informal discussion, we believe that the Airport Commission does affect all the airports in Sonoma County.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is my understanding. You're saying that that's what
So the Petaluma Airport is Petaluma Municipal Airport?
It is a municipal airport.
Okay.
Actually, Council Member Salmon at one of the Windsor Council meetings mentioned 5 cities in the county that have airports and said that they're all at least tangentially affected by some of the decisions.
Okay.
Commission.
Okay.
As much as I know.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will take those recommendations. It looks like at least the majority was for Sam and Gabe, so I will take that recommendation to the meeting on the 12th. Then we had Bay Area Air Quality Management District. There was one person interested who's already in that position, so we can skip. Golden Gate Bridge, Highway and Transportation is the same. Coastal Commission, also the same. I don't know who this guy is for local agency information, but
Do we really want to support him?
I guess we can support him.
We need a discussion.
For those listening to the podcast, we're harassing Councilmember Landman because he's currently the one who has expressed an interest and who holds the position.
Abstain from that one.
Then we have the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Now, what's curious is it says the committee submits 3 names, but we only have one person who's applied, so clearly we will recommend that person. And then I guess the Board of Supervisors will have to figure out the rest. So that works for us. And then nobody had expressed an interest in the Remote Access Network Board. So if anybody is interested.
That one is hard because it has to be a mayor, so it has to be
Yeah.
one of the mayors that...
If you jump out there, Madam Mayor, you could snag it.
For whatever it's worth, I don't think Joe never had a meeting last year.
Excellent.
So,
Okay.
There you go.
So I'm sure that's something that we will all arm wrestle over on the meeting at the 12th. Then we have the ABAG Regional Planning Committee, and that is the same person who's currently holding it is interested. The next spot where we have contention is North Bay Division of the LOCC Executive Board Alternate. Right now, Gabe Kearney's term is expiring, so there's one spot open, and we have letters of interest from both Dominic Fopoli and Chris Albertson. So I'll turn to the council for comments.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Landman.
Another one that's kind of puzzling, especially when someone steps down. In particular, after passing Mr. Fopoli for the first one, it would be nice to support him here, but as I really looked at the letters trying to find something here, I didn't see any real good reason elucidated why he wanted the position or what he brought to the position. Mr. Albertson at least brings some background and involvement, both currently as a council member as well as previously as a fire chief. And again, he has had a little more time in office too, and with that I'm comfortable. I think that gives him a slight nudge, at least for me personally. So if anyone's sitting on the fence, that's probably the direction I would recommend.
I had the same thoughts as you did, so I came to the same conclusion.
Okay, so Mr. Albertson. All right, and then Vice Mayor Moore. Did you want to weigh in on this one?
No, I will go with your excellent guidance on this one.
Okay, and then Councilmember Blas. That's
fine.
Okay, fantastic.
Slide his name in there, right?
So that would be my recommendation for the meeting on the 12th. Next, the only other issue we have of contention is for the SMART Board of Directors. That's for Sonoma and Area Rail Transit. There are 2 appointments available. We have letters of interest from Carol Russell, Aaron Carlstrom, and Jake McKenzie. So I'll take comments from the council on what sort of guidance you would like to give me. Councilmember Landman.
I'm looking around, everybody's looking this way. Again, we look for ways to help see through difficult choices when they're all colleagues who are interested in serving and have talents certainly available. I can say for Ms. Russell as well as Mr. McKenzie, they've both either called or mentioned this or asked in person. That's a clear push to me. Secondly, given the background Mr. McKenzie brings, that's pretty strong. Despite the fact he does serve in a lot of things, he serves well. So that convinces me that's a good value to bring. Secondly, when I think of outgoing Mayor Russell from Cloverdale perhaps has had the roughest time of some of the downturn with SMART, and they've handled it with perhaps, I think, in the best fashion possible, and they have perhaps one of the biggest interests in this county is to being part of that and working this process through. So I'm very supportive of her for that reason, too. Of all of us, they've lost the most. Not really having them come back, would like to see them have their hand very slightly on the wheel to help guide that as it goes down the road. And they both seem to be doing a very good job about it, from what I hear.
I would concur with that, and in addition to that, Carol's always been very open. If I've had questions about SMART or needed something, I've always felt that I could contact her and get answers. Jake has been really good to Katati as far as, making sure that we get what we need. He doesn't forget about us, and so his connection also with MTC, I think, is helpful. So I think both of them. But they still, stood up for us, and it was really important, and they got it. They got that tree was important to us, and they did what they could in order to help us make sure that the tree happened. So, and I do agree with you as far as Cloverdale. I mean, they're kind of out there, and they really want to see this come all the way up to Cloverdale. So I do think it's important for them to stay in touch with it. So I would concur with your recommendation of Carol and Jake.
Councilmember DeLosso?
Yeah, absolutely the same, and both of them did reach out to me, and that usually means a lot if people are going to contact you. So, yeah, I'd be fine with Carol and Jake staying on there.
I would also support those recommendations.
All right. Very good. And that was the last one.
May I ask a question, Madam Mayor, on the very first issue?
Certainly.
Do I need to show up to that 6 o'clock meeting?
No, I don't believe so. Oh, I will check in with our deputy city clerk. I think you do.
Yeah, that's why I thought I would ask.
We've done the administrative handoff, but it has not yet officially been voted that the new chair has not officially been voted in, so I would say yes.
Yeah, if I recall what happened last year, when the previous chair went in, opened the meeting, and when they took the vote, then that individual got up and left, and the new chair took over, so.
So we can carpool there, but not home, is that what you're telling me?
You can call a cab, that's fine.
Excellent.
We'll figure something out.
Okay. So I have my direction. Do we need an official motion on this, though?
Well, I think it would be good to have a motion, and I think it would be just to approve the names that have been mentioned tonight, and perhaps just give you authorization on the one item, the RAN committee, to vote as you see fit at the meeting.
Okay. So does anyone want to tackle that motion?
Do we need to mention the specific names in the motion, or as directed through discussion?
As directed through discussion, I'm sure that our deputy clerk will get them
I think
appropriately.
I have it written down, but...
You're welcome to give them, but I don't think you have to.
All right, then we'll avoid that. I'd like to move that the council adopt a motion supporting the choices discussed and directed tonight for Mayor Skillman to proceed with at the Sonoma County City Council members and Mayor's Association meeting for positions to various advisory bodies. And I will addend to that, sorry about that, and addending as far as RAN, there'll be a big fight for that, but do as best possible.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstention? All right, will the record reflect that's a 5-0 vote in favor as proposed? All right, now we're done with the regular agenda. We'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So I have a couple items tonight. One is a follow-up on the holiday toy drive, just to give some numbers and facts about it now that we've had time to do the rundown. And the Rotary Club of Roanoke Park Katati, along with the city, Rancho Adobe, Roanoke Park Rotary, and the Roanoke Park chapter of Realtors provided holiday gifts to 233 children from 93 families personally delivered by Santa. Over 100 volunteers wrapped the gifts, and deliveries were made in fire trucks, police cars, and the Rotary van. And also a local food pantry, Neighbors Organized Against Hunger, otherwise known as NOAA, also provided bags of food for each family. And donation barrels were put out in Roanoke Park, Katati, and Pengrove to collect the hundreds of new unwrapped toys that the community donated for this event, which is fantastic. And this is the 16th year of the program, so it's still going strong, which is nice to see. Also, the general plan adoption has begun the public hearing process. It was heard by the Planning Commission on January 20th, and they voted to continue it for a second meeting in order to discuss the circulation network on the west side of town in more detail, have a detailed discussion on that. The second meeting will be held on February 17th at 7 p.m. And also a reminder that the Community Development Commission will be holding a public meeting here tomorrow evening beginning at 5 p.m. The purpose will be to receive public input on the 5-year consolidated plan, which is being updated. That's hot off the press, but I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, Mayor Skillman? Yes. I noticed that the public comment was not opened for the appointments.
Thank you.
Discussion, so you might want to, could reopen and then ask the comment.
Very good. So we'll go back to regular agenda and item number 9. I'd like to open that for public comment. Is there anybody who would like to comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Thank you, Deputy City Clerk, for pointing that out.
Seeing literally none in the audience.
Okay, so any questions about the city manager's report? I'd like to open public comment on the city manager's report. Anybody want to comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment on the city manager's report. Now we have city council reports. Anybody want to start that off? Councilmember DeLasso.
Just one item to report on, and that is I attended the Planning Commission meeting as the new liaison, and it was a full house, and there was a strong contingency of folks from that subdivision over there behind Lowe's, where some people in this room used to hang out. It was, they seemed to have some interesting points that they brought up. A lot of it seemed to be communication. You know, I asked, during a break, I asked them, I go, well, what do you mean, you didn't have notice? We don't get the paper delivered over there, and we don't check the website. And I go, these are communication tools, and we've been using them for many years as a society, and that would be just a great way to stay in the loop on these things. So, they had some very interesting points about the mixed use over there off Hellman, and then coming a little bit south. So that's been put off, as Damien mentioned, just for a little while, but it'll come back. I think the rest of the comments, there was a little focus on a couple of other topics, but it didn't seem too disturbing. I don't know if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting discussion. There were a few questions about perhaps designating some ag lands on the southeast corner of the city, similar to what we've done on the west side. And there were some questions about bioprotections, biological protections. But I think by and large, the majority of the comments were about the circulation network, as you mentioned.
That's all I had.
Okay, Councilmember Harvey.
I do not have anything.
Okay. Looking to the side, Vice Mayor Moore.
Last week I attended the River and Empire Municipal Insurance Fund annual training day, 2 days conference in Fort Bragg, all about insurance. It was ever so exciting. Because if insurance is anything, it's very dry. And we had information regarding our existing workers' compensation experience through REMIF. They do a very good job on managing that. There's a few things that we might want to consider potentially buying out our future liability, if that were a feasible avenue down the road. We are still entertaining proposals through the RFP process for our self-funding plan. Of the initial proposals that we sent out, there were some that declined to bid on that. So we have opened up the scope of the providers that we're reaching out to. Initially, we wanted to try to just maintain or to invite California carriers or third-party administrators if we could, but since there's a limited response, we're expanding that a little bit. We are hoping to have all of those in by Wednesday, as we have another meeting to go over that Wednesday and look at the proposals that are in and see what kind of viability those are. That's the gist of what's going on with REMIF right now. Could be significant changes if this were to come to fruition in July. Oh, and we also are sending information to REMIF as part of this whole process, and potentially looking at mirroring benefits for employees through all of the existing cities, if it's something that can be done for the non-represented and the represented employees, and depending upon what we can do with some of the existing MOUs. So if we could, it would be much easier to administer and be more enticing for third-party administrators if there was a uniformity on the benefit level amongst all the cities, all the participating cities. So it's something we'll look at. We don't know if we'll be able to reach that, but that's something to consider also when we start to go into negotiations for both our city and the others. And I have not had, the last design review commission, I think, was rescheduled, and I have not had an opportunity to go to the library advisory yet.
Okay, thank you. And despite your recovery from your cold, Councilmember Lehman, do you have a report out?
It's not sounding very good over here. I intend to get through this hopefully without sniffling or coughing too much. Two things. First of all, I attended the North Bay Division League of Cities general membership meeting, is representing Cotati for one night. On the 21st, interesting discussion from the League Fiscal Advisor, just talking about modernizing our tax system, something that always makes everybody's hackles everywhere in the public and in election pay attention. But since this is coming from the League, we're probably going to hear more about it, so it made sense to see what they're looking at. And basically, it was a very short discussion, a breakdown of how revenue distribution works. Unsurprisingly, we get a very small amount. You already knew that, I think, either factually or perceptually you knew that. There was a discussion on an interesting issue of where the transaction takes place, business or the home address, and in terms of taxation. In other words, if you buy something over the internet, is it that store, wherever that internet, where the computer gets it in another state? Are you taxed at that rate, or are you taxed at your home rate? That's one example of this. And they bring it up because it's an interesting thing to look at, because changing to site of receipt, which basically needs your home, your home address, could return about as much as, they're saying, $1 billion to city general funds. Huge amount, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that. They also talked about, same thing we talked about or heard about this year, which was looking at that Prop 13 commercial property loophole, the change of ownership issue with commercial businesses. Some talking about that, and as general as we found, the devil would be in the details with that, but because it seems to be popping up at a lot of places, I think we're going to hear a lot more about that. So that's what happened there. And something from the news, kind of interesting, could impact us, I believe possibly in a very good way. In San Francisco, it looks like they are on the road much sooner now to clean power, a community choice aggregation. Mayor Lee, who has been staunchly against this, evidently came out yesterday showing all sorts of signs of being for one and giving some clear guidelines as to what he wants to see, and what he's describing as very much like what we have here or in Marin, basically less use of RECs, local generation as much as possible. I think he's talking about perhaps larger size generation, more industrial size city-owned lots as opposed to FIT or net energy metering, but still, and purchasing their own power, which I guess is a problem he had with the previous agreement where Shell did it all. But that's a good thing for us, because the more CCAs there are up and down this state, the less likely political pressure can be brought to bear against us. As you remember last year, that was a big problem with AB 2145, and I'm sure that will happen again. So the sooner we get to a point where we have the protection of many politicians in many different places recognize the benefit in wanting to protect a local CCA, we're going to be inoculized against that, and that'll be a better deal. So exciting news.
May I ask a follow-up question to that? I mean, if something like a 2145 was to come up again, whatever its new iteration would be, in theory now, we would have a support letter from the mayors and council members of Sonoma County. We couldn't say that last year, because we had...
Well, we actually did wind up getting there, but yeah, it would be less likely. It was derailed due to one vote, now that that city's part of us, and we won't go there. But now that that city's part of us, I would be very surprised to see that happen. However, in the big scheme of things, the type of attack I'm looking at, a letter from mayors and council members, well, valuable is a very small thing. This is a larger thing that mobilizes some very large political powers in its diocese. So the sooner we get to a point where we have the protection, because you saw it here, that in this region where we have CCAs, our local electeds fought very hard and were very motivated because they knew the value and they wanted to preserve that. But in other places where it's not happening yet, there's little motivation. And sadly, one thing PG&E plus some of its subsidiary unions do that Sonoma Clean Power doesn't do is they contribute very heavily to political campaigns. So if you look at that, the writing's on the wall. That remains a present danger until the time. The good news is I think that with what appears to be solid proof that this model for CCAs can actually work pretty well if it's managed decently, I think that adoption is going to speed up. It's just the next few years it'll be kind of dicey. So I looked at that as good news. I'm sure there's probably some deeper, politics to it, but it probably means this is happening sooner than we thought, so it could be a good thing.
And like you say, like PG&E and their contributions, I understand that, but as the chair of Sonoma Clean Power, maybe that's something you can consider bringing to the entire board this year. I'll let you just ponder that thought.
I hope this year I have to bring nothing like AB 2145 to the board. I'm hoping perhaps nothing happens, but so I'm just going to cross my fingers, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay, and then...
Madam Mayor, I did have one more thing to add. I did go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting, the last one they held, and the executive director that they had hired, Mary Ann, due to some health conditions, is not going to be able to fulfill that role.
Oh.
So they have hired a new executive director, Rick Minervini, a.k.a. Fiznik Rick, is the new executive director for the Cotati Chamber of Commerce. For those that may not remember, he is our MC, typically for the Kids' Day. There was some concern from some of the Chamber Board members that were not familiar with Mr. Minervini, and I had to express to them that I was pretty confident in his role there, having worked with him on nursery school board and PTA, and he was very professional in those roles, so I had the utmost confidence that he would be a good face for the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, great. Absolutely. And the only things I have to report out, I went to the new mayors and council members meeting up in Sacramento with our acting city manager, Damien Umbid, and it was very beneficial, always great to meet people throughout the state who have similar challenges, and it was some really helpful presentations, so that was great. And then I also attended the state and the county breakfast at O'Dark 30 in the morning. And so I do have documents about that if anybody's interested, and also it was videotaped and put on their website. So if anybody's terribly curious, it is available. And they did a really nice presentation about improvements that the different cities have made, and different goals that each one had met. So it was a good breakfast. So other than that, I have nothing else to report out. So, in conclusion, I will adjourn the meeting, but I wanted to acknowledge, as was brought to my attention from Councilmember DeLasso, we will close the meeting in honor of Linda Shearer Rook, who passed away recently in December, and she worked here for the city of Cotati, it looks like, from about the early to mid-'80s all the way to 1999. So we will close this meeting in her honor. And I will adjourn the meeting, and it looks like about 9:48. Thank you.